My wife of 19 years told me about her friend setting her up on a blind date. She had a girls' night out with her friend, Tanisha, who arranged the date. Apparently, it was with a man she had slept with a few weeks earlier. Tanisha was involved with someone else, and she set my wife up with her past hookup. My wife went out at 7 p.m. and came home at 3 a.m. The confession came completely out of nowhere. She said she was sorry and wanted to work on our marriage, crying and begging for forgiveness. She claimed nothing happened between her and the man, saying it was because Tanisha had already slept with him. She admitted that agreeing to meet this guy was wrong, and going to meet him was even worse. I don't believe that nothing happened like she says. She also mentioned that the guy works at a sawmill and makes more money. I think that's why she felt he was a better option. It felt like she was actively trying to replace me if she could find someone with a higher-paying job. If she did, this situation would be very different. Not long after this girls' night out and before the confession, my wife and Tanisha had a complete fallout in their friendship. They went from being best friends to Tanisha being a liar and manipulative, according to my wife. I think the confession, or partial confession, was meant to prevent Tanisha from telling me the full truth about her sleeping with the man. She was trying to manipulate me by only revealing part of the story, just enough to make her look bad but not the whole ugly truth. Honestly, I didn't need to know everything that happened, but the holes in her story were too big. Some little coincidences around that time made everything clear. When she told me, I lost all feelings for her. I just went numb and didn't even get angry. At that point I was done, just focused on planning my exit strategy, sorting out finances, finding a place to move into, etc. It really sucks that she would be willing to throw away 19 years of marriage without any concern for anything, including our 2 children. She is now in full-blown panic mode after being diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, where her white blood cells are attacking her lungs. This causes asthma attacks that normal medication can't fix. The only drug that controls the condition costs $133,000, even after her Medicaid. If I didn't have good health insurance through my job, she wouldn't be able to afford it. She is trying everything to reconcile, even setting up couples counseling. We made it through 2.5 sessions. She explained why she came clean about part of the truth and why she wants to fix things. The counseling sessions went as I expected. Each session focused on everything I had done wrong, even including my working 50 hours a week to make ends meet since she has partial disability and doesn't work. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but everything came up, even our 2 children, except that I was told the topic of her date night was off limits. About halfway through the 3rd session, the counselor asked her, "If you have such a sharp sense to detect what everyone else is doing wrong, why don't you turn that focus on yourself and tell me what you're doing wrong?" That was when everything went wrong. My soon-to-be ex-wife started yelling at the counselor, asking why she was attacking her when she was there to fix me. After a few minutes of back and forth, my soon-to-be ex-wife stormed out, crying. The counselor told me that my soon-to-be ex-wife has a deep hatred for me, and that she doesn't think this marriage can be saved. My response was simple. Yep and nope. I thanked the counselor for her time and said we wouldn't be coming back. She offered me individual counseling, which I said I would probably consider in the future. Then I told her about the taboo topic, and needless to say, it didn't surprise her. She confirmed her suspicions. The whole drive back to the house was about how much of a quack the therapist was. I've basically been on autopilot at the house. I now refer to it as the house because it no longer feels like a home. I've moved into the spare bedroom. As far as I'm concerned, I may still be married, but I no longer have a wife. If she didn't need health insurance, she would still be looking for someone else. I don't need to track down Tanisha to get the full story. I live in a small town with fewer than 900 people, and I commute to work in a bigger city every day. On Monday of this week, while I was at the only grocery store in town, guess who I ran into? My soon-to-be ex-wife. It was none other than the blind date guy. Small towns, right? It was bound to happen. I was at the end of the aisle when he walked up to her. He's a small guy, maybe 5 feet 9 inches and about 150 pounds. She had her back to me and didn't realize where I was. He asked her out again right in front of me. She declined though, and that's when I walked up. I asked her if he was the guy she went out with about 2 months ago. He asked, "What's it to you?" I backed him up against the shelves and told him I'd been her husband for 19 years. I thought he was going to soil himself. I'm 6 feet 2 inches and 250 pounds of muscle. She tried to get me to back off, but I growled at her to shut up and said she'd better listen. Immediately she started crying. I asked him if he swallowed hard and said yes. She cried harder. I told him to never let me see him again. He apologized for everything and basically ran out of the store. Her affair partner outed her by being in the wrong place at exactly the perfect time. If it hadn't been him, I would have eventually run into Tanisha to get the full story. Needless to say, most of the time I'm on autopilot. It's as if all my emotions are gone. I have to fake happiness when I'm with my children. I don't know if it's an emotional self-defense mechanism to keep things from falling apart further. I know I should be in some kind of distress over this, but one day it's going to hit hard. I no longer trust the things I thought I knew to be true. Do my children really love me, or do they love the things I give them? Do my parents love me, or just the fact that I got good grades in school and never got into trouble? The only thing I'm certain of is that I can't stay in this sham of a marriage. I get up, go to work, barely eat or sleep. The only people I've told about this are strangers on the internet. I have no one to talk to about it. I go from one day to the next, pretending I'm normal. Maybe my soon-to-be ex-wife was right. Maybe the therapist needs to fix me. My wife is cheating with my coworker. I'm 33 male and my wife is 30 female. We've been together for 11 years, and I thought everything was fine until recently. For context, I work as a dispatcher for truckers. It's a good job, I get good benefits, and I make enough for us to be comfortable. My wife had a job building gaming computers, but she lost it due to cutbacks, so I've been the sole earner. I've been picking up extra hours. One day my car battery died, so I had my wife take me to work. When we got to the parking lot, I saw my coworker Andrew. I waved at him and he walked over to say hello. I introduced him to my wife, and she shook his hand. He looked at me and said, "You never told me your wife was so beautiful." She blushed and I laughed, not thinking much of it, saying, "Yeah, I'm lucky to have her." We both went inside after I kissed my wife goodbye. A few days later I got my car running again, so I went to work like normal. During lunch, I couldn't help but notice my wife's car in the parking lot. I walked toward it and saw her and Andrew talking and eating lunch in her car. I got upset but kept my cool. I knocked on the window. She opened the door and said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you that Andrew and I are having lunch today." Andrew said, "I hope you're not angry." I took a deep breath and said no, and walked away because I knew if I said anything else, it would lead to an argument. But I could feel my wife getting frustrated that I walked away like that. Later that day when I got home, she blew up at me, saying I embarrassed her in front of Andrew. I asked, "Why do you even care? When did you start hanging out with him?" She said, "I'm a grown woman and I don't have to tell you," and walked off. Since then, she's been distant. I've noticed she's been on her phone more, calling and texting her friends. I suspect it's Andrew, but I don't want to accuse her unless I'm sure, and I don't want to look like a fool. I talked to my friend and he gave me an Apple AirTag. I plan to put it in my wife's car to track her and gather evidence in case we end up in court if we divorce. Part of me doesn't want to do it because I don't know if I can handle the pain. I've been through a lot, and I can't believe she's going to throw it all away this easily. But I feel like I have to do it. When I started suspecting something, my friend gave me the AirTag, and I hid it in my wife's car. She told me she was going to see a friend, but I didn't believe her. So, I followed her in my friend's car, making sure she couldn't spot me. After a 20-minute drive, she drove up to a hotel. I'm not going to lie, I felt sick and my heart was pounding. I was really hoping I was wrong and that she was seeing a friend. But instead I saw Andrew waving at her, and then I watched her run and jump on him, kissing him. I was so hurt and angry. I wanted to get out and confront Andrew, tell my wife to pack her things and leave. But I didn't. Instead I took out my phone, snapped some pictures and drove off. When I saw them walk into the hotel, I went home and cried, screamed, and even punched a hole in the wall. I called my friend over, showed him the pictures, and started crying again. I kept screaming, 11 years down the drain. My friend hugged me and told me to get a lawyer and keep gathering evidence. I didn't know if I could keep up the facade anymore, but I told him I'd try. Over the next few weeks, I kept gathering evidence and keeping my distance. I saw them go to restaurants, movies, and hotels. Each time it hurt, but I kept pushing through. She always told me she was going out with her friends or family, but I never confronted her about it. I thought I could keep it up for a little longer, especially since the lawyer I'm seeing said I have enough evidence to ensure I win everything in the divorce. But I think I messed up yesterday. Yesterday was my birthday, and I wasn't really feeling it. My wife didn't even wish me a happy birthday, but her parents did. At work, my co-workers got me a cake and some gifts. I tried holding back tears, at least until I saw Andrew. He gave me a gift, and I forced a smile and said, "Thank you." When I opened it, it was the comic Batman, Death of the Family. I was actually surprised because no one at work knew I was into comics, and DC was my favorite. When I told Andrew that, he said, "Your wife told me." Then all I saw was red. The next thing I knew, my co-workers were holding me back, and Andrew was in the corner, covering his nose, yelling, "What the hell?" I screamed, "I know you've been with my wife." Everyone went silent and looked at Andrew. He tried explaining himself, but I didn't care. All I wanted to do was beat him until he stopped moving. Then my boss came in, sent Andrew home, and took me into his office. I showed him some of the pictures, and he apologized. He gave me some time off to sort everything out, and he said he'd handle Andrew. Things really went south when I got home. My wife was waiting and blew up on me, saying I was wrong for doing that to Andrew. She said she talked him out of pressing charges for hitting him. She kept yelling, saying, "Andrew makes me feel like a real woman, treats me right, and knows how to make me feel special." That's when I lost it. I yelled, "I don't give a damn." She looked surprised and went silent. I kept going, saying, "If he makes you feel special, go live with him and let him support you because I'm done." Then she had the nerve to cry and say she was sorry. She tried saying that Andrew caught her at a moment of weakness, but I just took a deep breath and told her to get a lawyer because we're getting a divorce. She tried to apologize more, saying she couldn't afford one and that we needed to work on ourselves. I just looked at her and told her to pack up. She kept crying and begging, but I just grabbed her suitcase and called her sister to come pick her up. She locked herself in the bathroom, saying she wouldn't come out until I was willing to work things out with her. I kept telling her that I didn't want to work anything out and that we needed space. I told her I felt angry and hurt when I saw her. She finally came out, apologized, and packed her things. She waited outside for her sister to arrive. Now I'm finally alone in the house, and I can't stop crying. I feel so many things, and I just don't know what to do anymore. Sorry if I was all over the place with my post. I'm just feeling horrible and emotional, but I'm planning on seeing a therapist soon. I'll definitely update everyone once everything settles down. I'd like to thank everyone again for the advice and support. This is my last update for now, and if I release another one in the future, I'll post a part 2. So, make sure to subscribe to the channel.